Hello and welcome to episode number 7 of the TEW 2020 Challenge Run. This is a very important show. This is the final Monday Night Raw before the Backlash pay-per-view this Sunday. So, well, will be Saturday, actually, because payback Sunday. But yeah, this is the last show before Backlash pay-per-view. And without any further ado, let's just jump straight into the show.
I won't beg, break, I'm going away. Every moment's one more chance to stand up or get in the...
We have the VIP lounge to open up Monday Night Raw. MVP's in the ring. And to introduce his guests, both Apollo Crews and Aleister Black. And he spends the entire time, because he arranged the match between Apollo and Black at the pay-per-view after Apollo got beat on the first night on the Raw after Mania. So Apollo made this rematch to try and get the winning edge out of Apollo. And MVP spends this entire time berating Apollo, saying he hasn't got enough fire to beat someone like Aleister Black. He's got that. Aleister Black's got that edge. He's killing everybody. He's kicking everybody in the head. But Apollo's just been here. He's sort of just sat here for years, just collecting a paycheck and smiling at everyone in catering. What do you really do, Apollo? And then it'll all boil low, and MVP would be like, you know what? I saw a lot of talent left WWE recently that they had that desire to be here. They had that desire to push and be better, but you're just content to sit on your ass and smile. It should have been you. You should have been fired, Apollo. And those other people, they should still be here, taking the spot that you need to earn. And Apollo would get proper mad in his face and sort of shoulder check MVP as he leaves the ring and walks up the ramp in a hump, and MVP would be shouting at him. He's like, what are you doing, Apollo? You've got that edge, blah, blah, blah. Then he'd turn around into a black mass from Aleister Black. But then we'd go to a commercial break, but as we get back from the commercial, MVP is going to be wrestling Aleister Black, because you don't just get to kick him, and he gets kicked again and beat in 10:53. So maybe MVP himself needs to take a lesson from himself as he's beaten here by Aleister Black. Shayna Baszler promo ahead of the Raw Women's title match at Backlash this Saturday. She calls Liv Morgan a joke because she's Shayna Baszler and she's Liv Morgan. Like, look at them. Shayna says she dominated NXT for years. It's going to take more than just Liv Morgan to beat her. Now she's finally here on Raw. But then we'll be in like the interview room, and Liv would just fly in from off screen. You wouldn't even see her. It wouldn't even pan across to her. She would just fly straight in, like when Aleister Black, I think it was, dived on Seth, like that camera angle, and then she just starts jumping on Shayna and starts beating her up because she's got that fire and she needs to try and prove to the world that she can hang with someone like Shayna Baszler this Saturday at Backlash, where one of these two women will be the new Raw Women's Champion. MVP, he's backstage in a hump after he got beat by Aleister Black, and he sees Bobby Lashley. And he says to Lashley, you know what, you're basically what Apollo Crews needs to be. You are the prototypical WWE superstar. You are dominant now. You've got your thought of a wife out of your life. You're kicking ass and you're just beating everybody that steps in your way. And Shelton Benjamin is sort of with Bobby Lashley. He says, what about you, Shelton? You've been slacking here recently too. What's your issue, man? You used to be cool. We used to be great. The three of us, we dominated WWE in the mid-2000s. Maybe it's time to get Shelton back on that track. Screw Apollo. Screw all of them. It's time to see what Shelton has to offer in that ring. And he beats Akira Tozawa with the pay dirt. So Shelton Benjamin picking up a win. Lashley still dominating, but Apollo Crews still living rent-free in the head of MVP. Same with R-Truth, how he moans about his upcoming match against Angel Garza, and how he's still not the same after losing his baby 7-11-24 European TV title to Mojo Rawley and then to Rob Gronkowski at WrestleMania, and he's not going to rest until his baby is home, safe and sound, with Daddy. Oh, that match isn't next, okay. Okay, so we've got the Viking Raiders defeating Tony Nese and Riddick Moss just in a squash match because the Vikings got beat by Vink and Thorne. need to get a nice rebound win here over these two, who may end up being a jobber tag team on Raw, but they're both technically in NXT right now, but they just get brought up to do jobs every now and again. More wrestling. Asuka defeats Nikki Cross in 9:20 by submission with an Asuka lock, because these two teams will face each other at Backlash. Yeah, Backlash. Yeah, of course it is, because I'm Raw. Never mind. And so yeah, there'll be the Kabuki against Alexa and Nikki for the tag titles, a WrestleMania rematch at Backlash. So we're going to do the thing where the two tag partners face each other in two singles matches. Asuka beats Nikki, which means, as you can probably expect, the next match, 12:03, Alexa Bliss defeats Kyrie with a Twisted Bliss. So you can't separate the two teams heading into Backlash. Who will get the win on the big stage? And I just noticed that the storylines didn't advance for their matches. I don't know why, because I definitely did set one up. Anyway, Charlie's backstage with Brendan Vink, Shane Thorne, and Bronson Reed, Aussie Might, and what their intentions are here on Raw. And then Shane Thorne's like, listen, I know Bronson technically lost his debut match last week, but he's unfazed because look who's standing here today. He's the real winner. And then he's here to bring the pain, and we're going to spread that Aussie pain and that Aussie might across all of Monday Night Raw. And the Vikings would interrupt. And they'd be like, Bronson did beat up Umberto last week, but remember when you won 2 weeks ago, you needed his help. You couldn't beat us 2-on-2 because you're cowards and you're not a proper tag team like us. And then you're like, what? Shane Thorne specifically is like, you what, mate? Because he's got Brendan Vink, who's like taller than him, and Bronson Reed, who's a big thick boy. Those two could probably take on the Vikings, but they have aid. The Vikings have aid in the form of Humberto Carrillo, who's back from getting put through the table by Bronson Reed last week. And we get a 3v3 brawl in the backstage, and the impending announcement of a hot kickoff match for Backlash. Aussie Might versus Humberto Carrillo and the Viking Raiders. Bianca Belair picks up Nia Jax for the KOD and slams her and beats her in 10 minutes. Bianca quietly just racking up wins here on Raw. Nia beat Natalya in the bracket because I felt I probably should give her a win in her first match back, but she's just losing everything now. Get out of this poor run of form, maybe you'll get a win. But that's easier said than done when we're talking about Nia. More wrestling. Angelo Dawkins defeats Cedric with a powerbomb after the Ricochet beat Montez Ford to get them the tag title match last week. We could be doing the inverse again because it's the easiest way to build tag team feuds, especially because both my tag feuds are babyface versus babyface. Like, there's not really a feud, they're sort of like respectful. So like seeing who's better in this sort of fashion is the easiest way to build that. I know it's kind of lazy, but what can you do? They can't all be winners. Did I click the... I didn't. More wrestling. Liv Morgan and Sugar Rush, Candy Floss and Zaya Brookside defeat Ruby Riott and the Iconics. Says Billie Kay got pinned, but we all know, if you're paying any attention to Raw over the last 3 weeks, we know which member of this heel team here, we know who took the pin for. And that's finally a win for Zaya and Candy Floss over the Iconics. But it's not their doing because Liv, who actually looks like she could lead this faction, this could be a faction, but it's not something I have planned. But it just looks like 3 young, small women. A promo on this heavy wrestling show. Zelina is backstage with Andrade and Angel Garza, and she says Theory was the weak link because he's not strong like Garza or like Andrade, like Zelina's 2 Hispanic clients, and that Austin Theory wouldn't even be on Raw. She was the one that Vega handpicked from NXT to be Garza's partner at WrestleMania, and at Backlash, that same man, Angel Garza, is going to send him packing back to NXT, and Garza gives Charlie a flower, I guess because it was apparently an interview, but I forgot to put it on screen. Because he's just a charming man. Did I still not click that? Okay, here we go. And here is that match of R-Truth that he mentioned earlier on. Garza beats him with an El Muerto or Wing Clip or whatever. R-Truth can't concentrate right now because his baby is in the possession of somebody other than him, and he's going to have to get that back. Murphy comes out, and he takes a seat at ringside to watch Akam versus Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens comes out, and he's like, "Hey Murphy, we and you, our match has been signed off for Backlash. It'll be nice to actually wrestle you at Backlash. That is unless you still have your head so far up Seth Rollins' ass." And then, Stinger, because he said ass. That's a bad word. And Murphy remains unfazed. He just crosses his arms, just nods his head, as he waits for the match to begin between his friend Akam and Kevin Owens. And Owens obviously still trying to provoke him, because he's Kevin Owens, that's what he does. He beats Akam in a pretty good match, all things considered. And I probably should take Spinal Impact moves off, because I think that's limiting me a lot. And I do sometimes get like the spinal injuries, but it's not often enough that like I should be keeping that on, because the matches will be better if I take it off. Oh well. Simple segment. Murphy drops Owens with Murphy's Law. Does what it says on the tin, really. Then our main event is a 68. Drew McIntyre and Rey Mysterio defeat Jinder Mahal and Andrade. And Drew McIntyre pins Andrade. Jinder gets a 38. This man is main eventing my pay-per-view this Saturday. And I know it's because they've got absolutely zero chemistry, but Ray and Drew both got 74s. Andrade got 50. Andrade versus Ray should probably main event over Drew versus Jinder, but I hate myself, so I'm going to put that on last. This is what happens when you keep Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, and AJ Styles all off television, and you've got to give Jinder world title. Anyway, moving on from that, the show scores a 67. We're losing pop still, but Jinder will be out of the main event scene hopefully come Saturday. So, or he wins the title and gets like 80 pop and starts smashing out 90s. We'll have to wait and see. But that's the end of Raw's build to their first pay-per-view. The card being Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal for the WWE title. Andrade defending the US title against Rey Mysterio. Street Profits defend the Raw tag titles against Ricochet and Cedric. Shayna Baszler versus Liv Morgan for the vacant Raw Women's title. Kevin Owens versus Buddy Murphy. Angel Garza versus Austin Theory. Aleister Black versus Apollo Crews. The women's tag title match between the Kabuki Warriors and the champions Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. And the pre-show bout of Ozzy Might, Bronson Reed, Brendan Vink, and Thorne against Humberto Carrillo and the Viking Raiders. It will be a hot card for the Red Brand, and hopefully I'll see you then. But more importantly, I'll see you next time for SmackDown to finish their build towards Payback.